Bec, tell us a bit about yourself. Like where are you currently on the scenic route of life?
I love this question, and I love, this theme for a podcast, because my business journey has definitely been a scenic route, I feel. We've gone through many evolutions. So where am I right now? Right now, I am a full-time mum of two. So I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. He literally just turned 1. And my business is very much about how it can support me to have a side, something for myself, something where I can, live in my purpose and serve and support my clients and enjoy that side of things. But ultimately, it's built around my life and supporting me in life. And so that's where I'm currently at on the scenic route. And enjoying it, really loving it. I find there's definitely some give and take there. I often go, I really want to do this thing. And it's like, it's just not possible right now in this season. And that's okay. And I just have to park some of those big ideas and get to them at some point in the future when it makes more sense for me. And that's fine. But I do,
Yes.
I'm very much enjoying it.
Ooh, I love this. And this is already like such a good starting point of like, ooh, I want to talk about this. Right? Because I remember, what you say resonates deeply. Looking back 4 years ago when I was a new mom, I was like, oh, I have all these big ideas. I have no fucking, I have no intention of parking them. I want to do them now. And now I'm just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna put it in my Notion and it's gonna live there. It's gonna grow and kind of like just sit there and I don't know, and marinate, right? Like, I mean, your mind is always like even consciously like thinking about things. And I'm also now at a place where I'm like, it's fine. This is the season for not so big ideas. And my kids is in a kindergarten. So now I'm like, I might put out the medium ideas again.
I love that.
So, but that's a specific skill set, right? Because I know many clients coming to me. It doesn't have to be just motherhood. It can be anything, right? Where you're just like, I don't feel I have the bandwidth to do that or to do something to the standard I want to do it. And then they go crap all over themselves for it. So how do we go from, I want to do this now, I can't, so I'm crapping all over myself. Worst case, I'm feeling resentful I'm resenting myself. I'm resenting whatever, maybe the new baby, to this is the season I'm in and it's fine.
I think it's a journey. I don't think that happens overnight. And I definitely think there'll be times where it's more frustrating than others, and you really have to go on that journey of self-reflection. It's very much a personal growth thing, like there's not a business strategy that you can put in here. It's all about like, working on yourself essentially and recognizing that within yourself and going, okay, I need to surrender here a little bit. And, to be honest, I think parenthood is just the journey of it. I think it's a constant surrender, and you you can't not. And so if you resist it, it'll happen anyway. And I think it is something that if you can kind of consciously go, okay, I need to work on this a little here, as somebody who I in many areas of my life love being in control and, having a plan and a vision and, knowing that if I take XYZ steps, it's going to get me there, like I definitely resonate as somebody who loves that kind of structure. It's just not possible. And you kind of just have to do what you need to do to be okay with that and get to a place where, you can go, all right, this, nothing lasts forever. And,
Mm,
I've got 2 now, and I think it's very interesting going in the second time as a parent because, you have all of that experience going, okay, I know how fast this actually does go and how fast
mhm,
it actually does change. And if there's one
mhm.
thing that is for sure, it will change, right? Like that
Oh
is that
God,
is
change is
the one
certain.
thing.
Like, yeah.
And so it's kind of like a trial by fire, and you will get there even if you resist it. I think that is what I would say.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, and it's interesting, right? I imagine, I mean, I just got the one kid, and like, but I heard it from a lot of people who've 2, 3, 4, 5 kids. You always think you go in, okay, I got an idea of how this works, and you can pull some of from your experience for sure. And then at the same time, it's very humbling because that kid didn't do this. My
Oh,
first kid didn't
100%.
do that. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I resonate with that. My first was a great sleeper. We kind of
bless,
got very
bless, bless all
lucky.
of you.
Yeah, yeah. Second time round, not so much, and that's
Yeah.
fine, but it brings a whole set of challenges. I think it's one of those things that, you know, you you just learn and get good at and just manage. I always think that, parenting is such an interesting thing because you just don't know a lot of things, and
Mm.
you just kind of have to trust that you will, you'll learn how to do that, and it'll just be happening. And one day you'll have a kid that's eating real food and you're like, I don't know how we got here, but
Yeah. I think, yeah. And I think to that extent, it's super similar to like growing your own business, right?
Mm, yeah.
You have this, like before you have your own business. I mean, I remember when I was in corporate, I had these ideas of like how it's gonna be if I'm in business, or what kind of type of parent I would be, what type of entrepreneur I'd be, and then it's happening, and you're like, ah, okay, no, 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 okay, whoa. So it's surely like one of the big schools of life, entrepreneurship and parenthood for sure. Like, I'm curious, let's circle back to um you said you love to be in control and kind of like knowing I put this in, I
Yes.
get that out, which
Yeah.
yes, totally
Love it.
love it. And I mean surely in line with your areas with your Aries energy. Oh, because you don't know, we were joking a lot back and forth when we chatted, that she brings her Aries energy and I bring my Gemini. So it's going to be really interesting, like fire and water. Fire and water, fire and air. So anyway, so you said like you got to find out what you got to kind of like discover what works for you. So
Mm.
for you specifically, what did you like in terms of personal growth, or what did you do to kind of like be okay with this the season you're in, this the current pace you're at?
That's a really good question. What did I do? I think in the time that I had, right,
Or
which is not a
sorry
lot.
to cut in, let me
No,
rephrase.
please do.
Maybe it's that's okay. Let me see how I can get this idea out of my head. Maybe it's less about what you did, but who you thought you should become.
Mm, yeah, that's a
I
really
don't
good
know.
question. I think, something that really resonated with me is, we have this luxury in, this day and age to kind of spend a lot of time thinking about what kind of parents we want to be. And there's a lot of resources out there and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
different schools of thought. I think back to my parents, they weren't sitting around talking about parenting styles when they were parents, like we're quite in
No,
that
I don't
way
think
very
so.
privileged. Yeah, very privileged to be in this position to go, okay, like who do I want to be as a parent? How does that fit in with my life? I think the key thing for me is always coming back to intention. And I do this in business and life. And it's like, okay, well, what's the intention here? Like, what would I love? Obviously, anyone who's listening to this who has kids, young kids, or older kids, you kind of got to roll with what's happening that day. And some days are better than others and you nail it. And then other days you don't. But if you go in with the intention of, this is who I want to be today. This is who I want to be as a parent. This is who I want to be as a business owner. This is who I want to be as, whatever it is. that you
Mm.
do, you know, for me, that's a business coach. Who do I want to be as a business coach? What does that look like? I have an intention of what that looks like. And then it's like, okay, well, everything flows from there. And so you've kind of got this like grounding thing that holds you to where you want to be and who you want to be. And you can kind of remind yourself of that in moments where you're like, okay, how would I show up if I wanted to be this way, you know? And sometimes it's just that matter of, it's that reminder, you know. I was literally having this conversation with a friend who's also in business recently, and she's a young mum, and she was saying, you know, I so often get caught up in this comparison of what other people are doing and looking at how successful they're being and what they can achieve. And I then have to remind myself, like, I don't have full-time hours. I'm doing this in 10 hours a week, and I want to do that in 10 hours a week because I want the rest of the time to be time with my kids right now. And so it's this constant to and fro. And I don't think, you know, this idea of balance doesn't really exist. And if you can kind of start to like let go of some of these ideas or these preconceived notions and just go, what's the intention here for me to show up? How do I want to show up today? What does that look like? And you just do your best and keep that as your anchor point. And then know that, you know, if you didn't quite land there today, it's also okay, I think.
Yeah, right. That's really such good advice, right? Because we know that our thoughts shape our actions. So when we first take a moment, like, I mean, ideally before you start your day, but also like during the day when, I don't know, your kids is screaming and you're like, to kind of like pause and go back to, okay, how would I wish, or how would I desire to act now? What would just kind of like bring in any kind of pause,
Yeah,
right? Because otherwise, I don't know, I know I'm in the heat, and then like things kind of like not really spiral out of control, but like, I don't know, it gets kind of like heated up, right? Then kids start to scream louder, and then I don't know, at one point you start to scream, and then you're like, okay. So, but then, as you said, like, the interesting part is you do that, but then, as you said, it's kind of like your anchor point or your North Star. And most of the days you might get close, but you're never getting there. And some days you might not even get close. So, right? Like, how, and you said it's still okay. Yes, I agree. But I feel, especially for people who've been raised as women and conditioned as women, we feel we have so much on our plate, and we believe we have even more things on our plate. And how do we get from like, how do we make sure that we're not getting into like, oh, I'm a huge failure mode. I didn't reach that. I didn't show up as the mom or the entrepreneur I want to be today.
Yeah.
How do we navigate this?
Something that I like to talk about with my clients, and if any of them are listening to this, they'll be like, of course, Bec. I always talk about, yeah, come on. I always talk about holding things lightly. Like, I think so often we take things so seriously, we hold onto them too tight, and that's when we get really rigid. And the more kind of in flow we can be, or fluid we can be with that, and hold things lightly, like, that's the intention, that's the ideal, that's what we love. And knowing, but how do we do it, Bec? Come on. You know, I think so. There's a couple of things coming up for me, and I think it's first that permission to self, you know, and we're the only people that can give that to ourselves, right?
Yes.
But also, you know, listening to podcasts like this and surrounding yourself with people who can have these conversations with you in a very real, non-judgmental way, right? Because I think there's that fear too sometimes of like, well, I'm not the perfect entrepreneur, and I'm not the perfect mom, and I'm not the perfect, you know, this. And I don't want people to find that out, because what if they find that out and then they think that I'm a fraud or I'm not good enough or like
Ooh,
all of this stuff,
imposter
right?
syndrome, sneaky.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially that's so
Exactly.
true for Instagram, right? Because we're always, I
Mhm.
mean, still, we see way too much glamour, dolled up business things on Instagram, or it's like, oh, no.
Mhm.
No, I'm over here with my boobs wet doing business. It's fine.
Bring in the realness, right? And even I think
Yeah.
I always reflect on this because I often like to share the both sides of, you know, when things are great, and then, you know, perhaps if I haven't had a great day, I do like to share that too. But also knowing that even when people are real and share that vulnerable, you know, real side, you're still only getting the snippet of it. You know, you're still only
Oh,
getting like
yes.
the highlight reel of it or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And so it's always important to remember that, I think. And also, you know, nobody owes you anything on the internet, right? Like,
Oh, dear
you
Lord.
know.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a real opportunity to go, okay, and like this is what I'm feeling when I'm seeing this kind of content. What is that reflecting back to me? And
Mm-hmm.
what can I take from this as something that I could potentially work on? For
Mm.
example, you know, is there some stuff here around like not feeling good enough that I need to work on personally? And so it's all about that kind of self-responsibility and seeing, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what is this? What is this lesson here for me? You know, I'm feeling this way. And yeah, for sure, we can do things like not spend as much time scrolling and, you know, only following people who make us feel good and all of that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to go, okay, this is what's coming up for me. Why is it
Yeah.
coming up? It's not about them, right? It's always
No,
about
no, I agree. And
us.
even if you curate your feed and you delete all the people you're not feeling good about, and yes, you should definitely do that, right? Like, you still, I don't know, get an ad every now and then that's like, ugh, right? Like, it's kind of like you are responsible, as you said, for your own, how you approach things, for your own thinking, for your own, like, oh, okay, this is like triggering me. Why?
Mm,
Because there are probably other people who are totally fine with this. So why is it triggering me? And having the curiosity to be like, oh, right? Like, why? Why?
mm.
And
Sometimes I the way I reframe it is if I ever see something where I'm like, oh, like how did she get that? Or like, you know, that kind of those
mhm.
kind of thoughts pop in. I go, thank you for showing me what I want. Like, is this something I would want?
Ooh,
You
I
know?
love this. Yes.
Or thank you for showing me what I don't want. You know, when I go,
Hmm.
oh, that's not what I would want
Yeah.
to be doing with my money, for example, if I
Yeah.
was that successful in business, you know? And just going, this is showing me something about my own desires or
Hmm.
my own you know, whatever is going on behind
Yeah.
the scenes in that subconscious, and it's an opportunity to go, thank you for that, and this is what I need to take from it.
Yes. I love this, right? Because it's only sticking to you because there is something rooted down
Mm.
deep that's kind of like making your antennas go, ooh, this one, right? Because otherwise it
Yes.
just would pass you by, like you would scroll, right? Like it's just like, okay, whatever. It's not even
Yeah.
touching you. It's kind of like, that some, it's the same, like some feedback or comments or that where you're like, okay, whatever. And some just burn deep, right? And when you, I mean, I had that recently, and I was like, why this comment, which probably is totally fine if someone else reads it, but to me it was like a burning dagger to my heart. And then you're like, okay, why? Like,
Mm.
what do you need to take from this? Like, what can I take from this? Why is it putting me so on edge?
Yeah.
And I love what you said, right? That you can take, if something you're like, I don't know, why can't she do that? Why does she have that? Like kind of like those envy,
Mm-hmm.
jealousy types of feelings. The reframe of maybe, yeah, just like, okay, she is showing us what that women can do this. Love
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
Right? I love
Yeah.
this reframe of just being like, oh, okay, this is totally okay. And coming, just have a thought of like what you said earlier. No one on the internet owes you anything, right? Maybe that's a route you can explore for content creation, right? Like what if you're really just like, no one owes me likes, clicks, comments, whatever, and you just create from the place of I want to create something.
I think I love strategy, you know, and I work with my clients on strategy all the time, and we talk about, you know, let's try this or do this or whatever. But sometimes the strategy gets in our way, and this happens a lot when we're showing up on social media, because, for example, you know, we love to chat about the algorithm. It's like, okay, well, if I share my stories in this order and I do it in this way and I wait to talk about the podcast, you know, after everything
I have
else,
like a 10-day launch plan, and it's like and it's like 3 stories, 1 carousel post or 1 reel, and like
which, you know, if you want to have a plan and you want to stick to the plan and it's possible for you to do that, fine. But, you know, also, if that then starts getting in the way of you showing up that day, because it's like, oh, but I don't have the perfect photo that would go behind this perfect thing, and then I have to do it in this sequence of it's like, just show up, you know, like the most important thing is that you're showing up. Like the over strategizing can get in the way too. And so we've got to find this balance of like, you know, what is the strategy here? And is it serving us? And if it gets to the point where that strategy is no longer serving you, actually it's holding you back, then it's no longer the strategy we want to be focusing on. And I think it's a particular thing that I see when it comes to social media all the time, because, you know, I'll have clients be like, oh, okay, so like how many hashtags should I put on? Or like, is there a right way to do this? Or is there a wrong way to do this? And it's kind of like all of that stuff, like it's the fluff,
kind of like
it's
cluttering your brain.
Yeah. And if you're worried about like, am I posting it at the right time? You know, like all of this stuff, it's too much, you know, especially when unless you are a social media manager or strategist, you know, this is not your job. Your job is to serve your clients, and, you know, the marketing is something that supports that and builds the business. But, you know, like for you to be so up in your head about like this strategy, that strategy, you know, I need to post it at this time with this exact number of hashtags in this exact sequence, you know, standing on my head, you know, like it's just not. I'm
curious.
Not serving you.
Yes, I agree. There is a point, it's a fine line between you got to play the game and like, okay, this is nuts.
Yeah, and like, and how much is playing the game actually holding you back from just being in the game, you know? Like,
ooh, yep. So I'm curious, like when your clients come to you and talk to you, what are kind of like your telltale signs of like the strategy gets in their way? Do you have kind of like telltale signs that people can look out for? They're like, oh,
I think when it comes to that in particular, it'll be lots of minute questions around Instagram strategy, for example, you know, and like, is there a right time to post and how many hashtags? And I will always answer those questions, but I'll always answer them in the, you know, with the caveat of, you know, this has to work for you first and foremost. And the most important thing is that your content is serving your ideal clients and, you know, supporting them and connecting with them. Like that's the meat of it.
Yeah.
Then all of this other stuff is kind of like the cherry on top. And so, you know, if it works for you to post at an ideal time, then, you know, definitely do that. But don't let that be the thing that holds you back from posting that day because you didn't quite get there at 8:30 a.m. and now it's 10 a.m. and you're like, oh, maybe I should wait till tomorrow. It's like, probably just post the thing because it's not going to change things.
Yeah. Ship your art. Like just get it out.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll just essentially frame answers in that way. And also, you know, share with them that this advice is advice for right now. And also that if you go out there, there's lots of Instagram strategists and experts who will tell you different things. And, you'll have one person saying to do it this way and another person saying that that's wrong and to do it this way. And so it's almost like when we have that kind of conflicting advice on the internet, you've just kind of got to go, okay, what's the most important thing here? The most important thing is the content is speaking to our ideal client, and it is, highly valuable, really good content.
That's the key.
Might change.
Yeah, right. Because at the end of the day, yes, there's so much different advice on strategy, tricks and hacks and stuff. But ultimately, like we don't know how the Instagram algorithm works, right? Like only like the few handful of developers actually know. So we don't know. We don't know check shit how it really works. Like, yes,
and it's changing all the time.
Oh dear Lord. Now reels are not popular anymore, and now it's more carousels or whatever. Like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm always kind of like approaching it with the idea of, what would I like to see? I don't want to see just reels. I don't want to see just this. I want to see a mix of things. And I'm also really bored of like super pretty feeds, like the really designed ones. I'm like, meh, whatever, don't care. And I mean, that's coming from a brand strategist. I'm like, it's just, I don't know. It just looks, But I fully agree, right? The messaging, and that's why I always say, I'm always preaching to people, branding comes before marketing. And so many people kind of like got it backwards, right? Imagine if you have like the perfect time to post and the perfect whatever. If your messaging is not landing, or it's landing with the wrong type of clients, you might go viral, but then what? Like, it's not going to translate into inquiries or sales or whatever. Might not even like result in like community, like in more followers, because people were like, what? Or I don't know, worst case, you attract the wrong kind of followers. That's also not what we want.
Yeah.
Exactly. So thank you for pointing that out. So it's nice to not just me being like, message branding is really important.
It so is. And like, I think, there's lots of talk about, the industry's changing and the online business space is changing and this is changing, etc. Which is true. There are trends that are changing, and there are apps that are new, and there are ways to use apps that are new and all that sort of thing. But when it comes down to it, it's always the fundamentals we're coming back to. The amount of times I ask my clients, like every single week, okay, but like, what are your current clients struggling with right now? Like what are the things that they're finding frustrating? What are they wanting? What do they desire? Like, these are the things we need to always be coming back to, so that we can build our brand around that. We can build our offers around that. We can build our messaging and our marketing all around that. Like, we're always coming back to like these same fundamentals. And I love this idea, and I can't remember who shared it with me, but this idea that actually business is kind of boring. Like, business strategy is kind of boring. Like, it's the so same, boring. It's the same stuff over and over and over again. But if you can nail that boring stuff, like, that's when, you'll start to be able to layer in all of those strategies and those trends.
Yes. Yeah, I agree, right? Like, you gotta have some basic knowledge of like business strategy or marketing strategy to kind of like get things to work. But you just need so much more, right? Like, otherwise the same strategy would work for everyone, and we know it doesn't, right? I mean, we all bought that course or something and had some Instagram business guru tell us to do this, and it didn't work. Right. So how do you, like, when you work with your clients and you're really like, oh, okay, let's bring more of an awareness to it, that it needs more than strategy to build like a business that not only works with the season of life you're in, but you're actually like so excited about. What pieces do you bring in?
Oh, that's a good question. I actually usually start with this, and it is knowing your why. Like, why are you in business? What does it mean for you personally? And, like, building a business, the time freedom, the money, all of that, like what does that look like for you and your family? And so that's where the season of life comes in. But also, what does it mean for you, and what's your why when it comes to the impact you want to have, you know? And so what does that look like in terms of, you know, the transformation you're providing your client? You know, I work with like heart-centered business owners who are all in the service-based industry. They're healers, they're coaches, they're doulas, they're yoga teachers. Like they're all in this space of like serving others to have some kind of benefit or transformation or outcome,
making a
right?
positive impact, making the world a better place, like really.
And they're passionate about that. Like that's why they're in business. They're in business first and foremost because they felt this like pull towards it, and they want to show up and share the thing that they know, or the skills they have, or the magic they've got. They know they want to share that. And that's a really great place to start and to continue to remind yourself of again and again, because when you show up from that place of this is why I'm in it, it becomes easier to take those steps that, for example, might be a bit scary to step outside your comfort zone, or, you know, like all of those challenges that come with running a business, you know, learning the strategy or learning this. And also when you know that, then you can make decisions based on where you're kind of anchored into and coming from, and what the vision is too. So being really clear on this is what my vision is. And it's like, okay, well, this is where you're at right now. This is what you want. The strategy that's going to help you, knowing where you're
kind of
at
like
in
bridge
life.
where I am to where I want to go.
Yeah, like this is what I would recommend. I don't recommend you start a membership right now, because that's not going to work for you in the same way that you know, offering a one-to-one service would work for you right now. And this is based on like where you're currently at, the size of your audience, you know, and what your vision is in terms of getting to a place where you are full time.
What you're willing to do, right? Are you willing to really like get knee deep and get, I don't know, 200 people to sign up for a $10 membership so you actually have some sort of money? Or would you rather have one-on-one client that pays you the same amount?
Yeah.
Like, what are you willing to do? Or what are you capable to do in the season you're in?
Exactly. So you've got to kind of take everything into account and then kind of go, okay, well, this would be the best, or these are your options. And if you do want to go down this road, this is what it's going to take, right? Like, let's get realistic about what it's going to take to have this kind of offer in your business in the situation you're in and the time you've got and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm really big into like, what's the easiest next step for you? You know, like what is the easiest thing that makes the most sense for you right now that will help clients and help you have that impact you want to have, that's going to be way easier than perhaps, you know, going out and doing something else, which might be the thing that you do really want to do at some point, but you might have to, you know, like strategically, it's all about that give and take, right? And that kind of trade-off. It's like, okay, well, if we do that, then something else has got to give on the other side, or we've got to put more money in, you know, like how much money have you got to invest right now, you know, or how much time have you got to invest right now, you know, so like everything's got a trade-off, and it's about making decisions that make sense. And I think, you know, that's one of the benefits of having
makes sense
somebody who...
exactly, and make sense for you, right? Because it can totally make sense for your business coach, for your spiritual healer, for your parents, for whomever, but does it make sense to you? For you, does it are you actually 100% like yes, or is this nagging little feeling in your gut that goes like
Yeah. I mean, I remember once it was when I was first on mat leave with my eldest, and I had a friend who did readings, and I can do readings.
Like what kind of readings are you doing? Oracle readings?
Like Oracle readings.
Oh, love it.
And I can do them. And she was like, I do these, you know, this is how much I charge for them. Like you could just do them in the time you've got. And I set this whole thing up. This offer up. It was just a low cost offer. I was like, yeah, put it out to my Facebook group. And as soon as I hit publish on it, I was like, no, this is not for me. Like I had this like real, and I don't have many of those, but I had this real like gut, like like contraction where I was like, oh no, this is the wrong move for me.
Oh yeah, I know what
And
you
so
mean.
yeah, and so I was literally, it was up for like probably 12 hours, and I went back into the Facebook group. I made a few sales actually, and I said, I'm going to honor these sales because, you know, I'm really excited that you purchased this, and I'm really like thankful that you did. But I want to share with you that I put this offer out, and I did it because, you know, I thought it would be something that I could do that would be fun, you know, and like help you at this time and work in and around, you know, having a baby, etc. But I put it out, and I had this real like immediate gut reaction that was like, no, this is not for me. And I shared that with them, and I said, you know, for me, this is a real lesson in trusting that and being okay, and knowing that even though I put this out to you, like it's
And it
okay for me
worked.
to
Like, I
change my
mean, you
mind.
got a few sales, so it's not like it's like a lame duck. So it's working.
Yeah. But I just went, no, it's just not for me. It's not for me. And which is, you know, I love that story. And I love that I got to have that experience because it was a real lesson, and it was a lesson for me. I got to share that with my community. And now I'm still talking about it 4 years later.
Yeah.
And and it's a really good reminder that just because this thing worked for my friend didn't mean that it worked for me. And I needed to have that experience to really go, no, I've just got to trust my own path here.
Oh, I mean, what better ways to end an episode of the Scenic Route podcast? Dear Lord, I think those were the best final words ever. No, I mean, but seriously, right? Like if you're listening and you maybe you're currently thinking about like launching a new service or a new product or whatever, and if it makes even if it makes total sense on paper, but there is a feeling you can't quite shake. Just pause. And like just by pausing and realizing, you know, this is not actually what I want to do, be courageous enough to scrape it. Right? Because it's not, if the feeling's there from the beginning, it's not going to go away.
Yeah.
In my experience, it's just going to get louder.
Very much true. I so agree with that.
Bec, this was a blast. So where can people hang out with you online? Where can people find you?
So the best place is on Instagram. You can come over and connect with me there. I'm at bec.cuzzillo. And I also have a podcast called Feminine Fire with Bec Cuzzillo, where I share lots of business strategy, mindset, energetics, advice, and my own experience. And I have guests, and come on over and have a listen. There's over 100 episodes, and I'd love to connect with you and hear how you enjoyed this conversation today.
Yay. Yes, we definitely do that. And I have always one final question, and I'm curious.
Yes.
What book are you currently reading?
Oh, that is a good question.
Or audiobook, whatever. Like, I know.
Yes. So my guilty pleasure is to read Regency romance novels. And I read a lot of them.
I cannot relate, but okay, you do you.
I find it very relaxing because it's always predictable. You know, they're going to get together.
The plot is pretty. Yeah, this is what's going to happen.
Like
love it.
It's always a happy ending. There's always a plot twist, you know, like, and so I actually don't even know what book I'm reading because I read so many of them. But it's probably called something like, you know, I can't even think of one, you know, like The Duke and the Maid or something like that, you know, like it's probably something.
This sounds
like
also like super spicy.
It is often.
Okay.
If you're a fan of Bridgerton, the reason I got into them was because I watched Bridgerton and then I read all the books, and then
you're like, that's my jam.
Yeah, this is it. This is so good. It's so relaxing, right? Like in a world where it can be hard to like switch off, it's nice to just have something that's not going to like assault my senses, you know? Like I'm not going to go to bed and be like, you know, having a heart attack from the book I'm reading, or like, you know, scared or like worried. Like I just know
you got a warm, fuzzy feeling.
Yeah, exactly. They're always going to get together in the end.
Love conquers all. That's beautiful.
So nothing very intelligent, but pretty trashy and
Well,
very
that's the
relaxing.
thing. I feel all of us at Height and Fat Chance that if you're listening to this podcast, you too, we're reading way too many business books, like way too many. And I'm sorry, but like I think my latest 3 great ideas came from fiction books, not business books.
Yeah, interesting, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like
switch that brain off.
yeah, right? I mean, it was just like the other day, I think a week ago or so, I had an Instagram post about like the frequency of light and how light is very interesting physically, and how it relates much to branding. And the whole idea of that light discussion came from the book I was reading at the time, because they were having a similar discussion. And I was like, ooh. And the book was called All the Lovers in the Night by Mieko Kawakami. And I was just like, ooh, very interesting. So I was like, here are my thoughts on this. Right. And it turned into business, but there is no business book that starts with physics. Like
Yes. Yeah. I love it. That inspiration, it most often comes from that. And that's not to say that business books aren't great. And
Oh
I just haven't read one in a really long time.
Absolutely. There are a lot of great ones, but I feel sometimes we're reading just too many of them. And it's I feel when I read too many of them, it makes it hard to hear my voice and to hear my truth. Whereas reading fiction, it's sort of a catalyst to my own voice and ideas and thoughts.
Yeah. I so feel that.
Bec, I'm gonna let you go. Thank you so much for being on the Scenic Route with me.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.